Hello, everybody. How are you? I hope you're having a fantastic evening. I am Traci from the New Hampshire Dog Walking Club, and I am broadcasting to you live tonight as we create awareness of pet poison prevention. I am here with Dr. Lisa Boyer. How are you, Dr. Boyer?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So glad you could join us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the invitation.
This is a very important topic, and all this month we're celebrating National Pet Poison Prevention Awareness by bringing in experts like Dr. Boyer, who have a lot of expertise here as an emergency veterinarian and consultant. And she's going to be sharing a presentation with us. She's got a lot of great information. And we were talking before we went live here, and Dr. Boyer is going to be sharing stuff with us that you wouldn't normally be able to find if you're doing a search on Google or, any other area of the internet. She's got a lot of knowledge she's going to share with us. And it's such an important topic because I know Dr. Boyer and myself have heard way too many horror stories in regards to pet poisonings that could have been prevented with some owner education. And that's really what we're hoping to accomplish tonight. So just to let you know, I know there are a lot of people tuning in here from other pages and groups on Facebook. We are the New Hampshire Dog Walking Club that we are offering this broadcast to you. And just as a note to our members, just a reminder that if you do ask a question during this presentation, it does count towards an entry in the contest that we do for the giveaways each month. And if you are wondering who we are and what we are doing, I will be sharing some more information with you on the New Hampshire Dog Walking Club at the end of this broadcast. So if you are in New Hampshire or in a neighboring state, then we would welcome you to join us. But I don't want to hold anybody up, and I certainly don't want to hold up Dr. Boyer, because we want to get this information right to you. But I do also want to encourage questions during the broadcast if you have them, and we will both be here to answer them for you because this is such an important topic. So without further ado, Dr. Boyer, can you tell us more about what you do as an emergency vet and a consultant?
Sure. I do what's contract work. So I travel throughout the state or other states where I'm licensed, and I provide emergency veterinary services to clinics. So I work at several different places, usually in a given month. And I, as an emergency vet, I see whatever walks through the door, mostly for dogs and cats, sometimes for exotics, birds, pocket pets. And then as a consultant, I have a separate business. I'm a court qualified expert in several disciplines within veterinary medicine and canine reproduction and breeding. And then I also provide a case consulting service where if you as a pet owner, your pet has been diagnosed with a particular disease and you may have a lot of questions, or you don't understand the treatment options, or you want a second opinion, I can do records reviews and sit and talk with you at length to really make sure you understand, what your pet has, what the treatment options are, further diagnostics that may or may not need to be done. Did we miss anything? Or, hey, my vet can't figure this out. Do you have any ideas about what this could be? What would you do next? So that is a service that's available through my business.
Well, I know we were talking beforehand too, because I have never heard of a veterinarian consultant. And I'm actually curious, if you are listening to this live or on the replay, let us know. Have you ever worked with a veterinarian consultant? Because as Dr. Boyer and I were talking, I was thinking to myself that had I known that someone with this experience in this position was available years ago, it would have created helped with a lot of heartache and a lot of misunderstanding on the part of, us with our veterinarian and our animals. So I'm curious if any of you have worked with or have heard of that, because to me, that seems like an extremely valuable service.
Not a lot of people do it. In fact, one of the things most veterinarians will complain about is they get random Facebook messages at all hours of the day or night from people they haven't heard from in 20 years. Hey, my dog has this. What should I do? Well, that happens to me a lot. And I finally decided, we'll turn it into a consulting service. And it works really well. So
fantastic. Well, thank you for all that you do with that, because I want to spread that wide and far that you have that availability. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And we're in the process of revamping a website for that. And as soon as that's up, I'll share that with you as well.
Excellent. Good. And also through this presentation, Dr. Boyer is going to be asking questions in a poll that she has created, just to get a little bit more understanding from our audience what knowledge that you have about the topic she's talking about. So I'm just going to flash this up here right now, but I will put this back up as a reminder during the presentation too. So if you want to go to your browser window right now and type in Slido, SLIDO.com, to have that ready. And at the top of that, it will ask you for a code, which is W883. So if you go ahead and have that ready now, then you'll very easily be able to participate in the polls. There's going to be 3 questions, but we'd really like to have your feedback on these different questions. It'll help Dr. Boyer. All right, so do we want to jump into it?
Sure. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share screen. So let's hopefully this will all work correctly. Okay, share screen. Let's see all this new technology.
Yep, I see it there.
Okay, and let me just go
Perfect.
And let me just go ahead and go back to the front, and we should be good.
Excellent.
Good?
Yep, and I'm going to just put the Slido banner up again. So again, if you want to open your browser to slido.com and enter code W883, you can participate in the polls here as we go along. Great. All right, take it away.
All right, well, thank you. If at any time you'll be fielding questions, I'm assuming people can type in questions for you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Feel free to interrupt if it's something that needs to happen at the moment, or we can also do the Q&A at the end.
Yeah, because actually, Dr. Boyer, there is one person, Paul's asking, how do we submit questions during this event? And Paul, if you probably are watching on a Facebook group or a Facebook page, you can actually just ask your questions directly in the comment section below where you are watching this live broadcast, and that'll pop up on our end, and I will flash those up for Dr. Boyer.
Great.
Perfect. Thanks for asking.
Okay, and so as Traci's already spoken about, Slido.com, there's the participation code. Unfortunately, we don't give out a participation trophy, but it is kind of fun to have some active participation. So, okay, so a little bit about me. That little puppy right there is now 3 years old. Her name is Enyo. She's one of our Tibetan Terriers, aptly named for Enyo, the minor Greek goddess of war and destruction. So she is one of my very favorite dogs. So my experience is I've been practicing for about 19 years, mainly as an emergency and critical care veterinarian. I do also general practice. However, I don't own a practice, and I don't stay in one place. I tend to travel and work for multiple businesses because oftentimes they are shorthanded or they need fill-ins for people who are taking vacations and leaves of absence. And I really enjoy doing that because I meet a lot of different people in all walks of life that way. I also have some postdoctorate training in canine and feline acupuncture, Chinese herbal medicine, homeopathy, and in general holistic medicine, which I feel gives me just more tools in my toolbox as a veterinarian. I don't just understand Western medicine. I am very active with the AKC. Both my husband and I are breeders of merit in the wire-haired pointing Griffon breed. We've been breeding those for 12 years, and we are now venturing into Tibetan Terrier breeding. Also, I am an AKC Canine Good Citizen evaluator and instructor, trick dog as well, and canine fitness instructor. And I've spent a lot of my career as a contributing editor and author of multiple articles on canine health, sporting dog health, for many national dog publications. And some of them are for breed clubs or for the AKC, and some hunting magazines, as we were previously very involved in sporting dogs. And I do have an interest in reproduction, behavior and training, and sporting dog medicine. And I have a family, my one husband, 3 kids. My youngest is 15. We have 7 dogs. Yes, 7. We don't usually count the number of dogs. We count how many pounds of dog we have in the house. And 2 cats, for good measure. Okay, if you get nothing else out of tonight's presentation, I really want you to take down these 2 things. You should have this number posted somewhere in your home that's accessible. There are only 2 animal poison control centers in the United States, and I do believe they will also work into Canada. The ASPCA is the oldest pet poison control center. It is as well, and then there's Pet Poison Hotline, and both of them are staffed with veterinary toxicologists 24/7. When you call them, it can take a little while to get through. Unfortunately, I've sat on the phone and held for 20 to 30 minutes, and in the meantime, you can be driving to your emergency clinic, but you would call them tell them what's going on. You'll speak to somebody who is trained in handling pet poison emergencies to tell you whether you need to worry about it or not. And then the most important thing is they open up a case file so that if your pet is continuing to have problems and you are at the emergency clinic, the veterinarian who's treating can talk with that toxicologist. They fax over treatment recommendations. All of the information is there. They help figure out if whatever the pet got into is a toxic dose or not. And we use this service often. And so the charge for calling them when you do open a case with them is about, I think, $75 at the most. I think pet poison helpline is $65 and ASPCA is $75, but they're both excellent services. Okay, so what we're going to cover tonight, we'll do some general information about toxicities in pets, what household goods and products might be poisonous, poisonous foods, medications, plants. We'll talk about something that a lot of people don't talk about, which are toxins that your pet can get from other animals. What should you do if your pet has been poisoned? And prevention suggestions. And that really is something we'll end on because it's very important. We can prevent almost, I would say we probably can prevent 90% of all toxicities. Okay, so we should have the first poll up, and I've given you some choices about how many incidences of pet toxicities are there in the United States each year. So I'll give you a few minutes to respond to that. And so we have probably 2 responses so far.
All right, I entered mine.
Okay, yep, I see 3. That's great.
This is such a neat addition to the technology. Anytime we can incorporate something that's interactive, I really love it.
Yeah, I do too. It helps us kind of get an idea of what people know and what they don't know about a particular topic. Oh, we already have 5 answers. That's great. Tracy, do you know how many people are live watching right now? So
I'm showing 31 people.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. Yep. Great. Oh, so we can hopefully get some more responses.
So again, what we're showing you here is an interactive poll that Dr. Boyer is using in her presentation, and you just need to visit slido.com, SLIDO.com, and enter code W883 as you see in the banner below the poll that she is running. So if you would like to participate, head on over. We're going to give about a minute or so for some interaction there. I have a question I can throw up in the interim if you want while we're waiting.
Absolutely.
Because we did have one come in here right at the start. So Kay asks, I'd like to ask Dr. Boyer's advice about the situation where a dog has eaten or possibly eaten a dead, poisoned mouse.
You know what? And I'm going to put that on hold because that is part of this presentation towards the end.
Perfect.
But yes, we will go over that. I promise you.
Okay, that's great. And Lori says that she had not heard of a veterinarian consultant. So, okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Thank you, Lori, for validating that.
It's not a common thing. It's kind of hopefully trailblazing, a new thing. So.
Yeah. Oh, beneficial. I love it. Okay.
Great. All right. I think I can move forward. So actually, about half of the people who responded to the poll felt that there were 100 to 300,000 toxicities every year, a little more than half. That's great. And in fact, there's about 215,000 cases of pet toxicities per year in the United States. And what you'll see on the map there is only kind of per state, the number 1 toxin per state. So you can look at all of the orange is chocolate. So you can see where everybody likes chocolate. And then the anticoagulant rat poison, although this number is, and I'll explain why later when we talk about rodenticide, why that number is changing. And you can see a couple of xylitols here and some various other toxins and only fly attractant right here. So, it does vary by state. This is I couldn't get anything more current than 2019 right now, but that's the top breakdown by state.
Well, and just to let people know, xylitol, in case you're not familiar, is a substance found in peanut butter. So
we're going to talk.
Are you going to go into that a little more? Okay, that's what I thought you were. Okay,
absolutely. It's an artificial sweetener. And so, we will definitely go through that. Okay. All right. So we're going to go into our second poll. If you have cats and you have dogs, I'm wondering, who do you think is more at risk of having a toxicity?
That's a good question.
Mhm.
All right, I put in my answer. I feel that dogs are so always into things. Cats are a little smarter, you know? So we'll see what
Like
people
cats are
think.
sneaky, right?
Yes, they are. That's true. Or they'll do it and then they'll blame it on the dog.
Absolutely.
It's the dog
Definitely.
regardless.
Definitely. I would agree.
And we have one comment here from Ray. He says, I'm surprised there is not a category for essential oils. Is that something that you're covering at all?
I am covering essential oils tonight.
Wonderful.
That is part of under a household product. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay.
Perfect. Yep. Okay. We have one vote for the cat. Somebody always has to be on the opposite side of things, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
But who knows, that could be the right answer. So.
That's true. Okay. I think we can move forward here. So 80% of all toxicities are dogs. And the reason that is because dogs tend to explore their environment with their mouth. They're out roaming. They're out, with their pet parents. They are, everywhere more than cats. Most cats don't, get out in the environment unless they're, a lot of them are just in home, inside cats only. But also cats are more fastidious. Dogs will eat anything. They'll roll in anything. Cats are pretty picky and they keep themselves clean. And when they do get toxicities, it tends to be plants or flowers or insecticide type products. Those are the most toxicities. Most toxicities or medication. Most toxicities in cats definitely is not, eating something random. Okay, I'll move on. Okay, last poll. Oops. There are about 210,000 pet poisonings in the United States each year. I'm wondering how many of those are intentional or malicious, where somebody threw something over the fence to try to poison your pet. And I bring this up because that's something that happens all the time when I get calls at the emergency clinic, or somebody will bring their pet and think, I think my neighbor poisoned my pet, or I think somebody intentionally poisoned my pet.
All right. I'm going low on this one because I have faith in the human race.
Okay.
I really don't want this to be high, Dr. Boyer. I really don't. That would be very, very sad.
What I'll do is while this poll is going, I'm going to move forward off of the slide to show you a video. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Pets have been poisoned. They are hoping money talks. 3 dogs have been killed so far. Several others are lucky to be alive. There is now a major reward for information leading to the arrest of the person placing poisoned meat in yards. It is happening right near Fort Apache in Desert Inn, and 13 investigative reporter Joe Bartels now walks you through the timeline and the clues that might solve the bizarre case.
There are these flyers posted in the area offering thousands of dollars in cash in what is being called a top priority investigation for police.
We were there when they were born. We literally gave birth to them. So, yeah, it's like somebody just killed my kid.
The pain is almost too much to bear.
Yeah, the whole dynamic is kind of off that are being here. So it's definitely tough.
3 pets poisoned: Luke, Chewy, and Leia. One of them didn't make it. 2 others lucky to be alive.
This stuff works so quickly and can kill the dog so quickly. A lot of people could come home to a dead dog and they just chalk it up to, it got into something and don't even know.
Video from the morning of March 28th shows the dogs out in their backyard when one of them comes across poisoned meat.
I keep on looking at the video and I just wonder why somebody would do that to us.
All 3 began horrific seizures. Toxicology reports showed strychnine poisoning as the cause of death.
Just seeing what this person creates and throws in your yard, they're literally in their kitchen, thinking about, this is actually like a thought out thing that they're doing.
Several other owners report their dogs have also been targeted in the neighborhood dating back to at least 2015. 3 German Shepherds were targeted. Kenya found tainted meat in the backyard and was rushed to a vet. She survived. 6 months later, the same dogs were targeted again, but did not eat the poisoned meat. In November of the same year, 2 dogs, a Chihuahua named Max and a Pit Bull named Nella, were poisoned in their backyard. Both suffered seizures. Max died shortly after. In August 2018, the German Shepherds were targeted again with meat. Then, just last month, Leia, Luke, and Chewie were poisoned. There are at least 3 other poisoning attempts and 1 dog killed. Now this nervous owner walks his neighborhood, flyers in hand, hoping a nearly $10,000 reward leads to the arrest and conviction of a killer that he fears lives among his fellow animal lovers. Police so far do not have many leads and need help tracking down a monster. Joe Bartels, 13 Action News.
And
Okay. And so if we go back to the poisoning questions, oh, wow, good. A lot of people have faith in humanity, so that's a good thing. And let's go ahead and look forward.
Fingers crossed for humanity.
Yep.
Yes.
And in fact, only 200 to 250 cases every year are intentional animal poisonings in the United States. The nice thing, that's good for us as humanity. It's good for me as an emergency vet, because then generally I don't have to look real hard at what could the pet have gotten into. There are specific things that pets get into that I can start asking other questions based on symptoms that I see. And, obviously we want our pets to be safe. We don't want anybody to be targeting our pets. So it's nice to know that this is out of, 200,000 poisonings or toxicities a year. It's a really, really tiny percentage of those that are actually somebody intentionally poisoning your pet.
It's still 200 to 250 too many, but
Absolutely.
yeah, at least it is on the low side, which I'm glad about.
Extremely low. Exactly. Yeah, we would like it to be 0, certainly. Yeah. Okay, so toxins are generally broken down by categories for us to be able to make sense of them and to make it easy to remember things. Household products would be number 1. So those are just common things we have around our home. I'll deal with food as a separate topic. Medications, both human medication and veterinary medications. Plants, and those are the main 4 categories of toxins. And then I add in one for animal-produced toxins, because there's a couple of things we'll talk about tonight at the end that a lot of people don't know about. So actually, I'll start this one now. On the animal-produced toxins, there are 2 major ones, and this does not include things like rattlesnake bites, or those are more envenomations, not true toxicities. And there may be more than these 2, but these are certainly the 2 that I have seen in practice. I'm sure many people out there have had their dogs sprayed by a skunk. And when there is actually a toxic shock syndrome of skunks that will happen to your dog if they're sprayed, especially in the face and around the mouth and the nose. And so if after your dog is sprayed by a skunk, they're not behaving normally other than the terrible smell that happens, please realize that they may need to go see their veterinarian. It is not a benign process. So they can actually get a toxicity from the skunk spray. And then depending on where you live in the United States, toads can be toxic as well. Eating a toad, licking a toad, all of those can cause anything from just profuse salivation to seizures and even death, depending on the type of toad that your dog may have gotten into. A lot of those are more in Hawaii, Colorado, Florida, and other parts of the southern United States, but there are some, and I think even in Canada, but the ones in Canada are less toxic than the ones down in the south. So if you're traveling with your dog in particular, don't let them eat toads or lick toads. Okay. So of all of the types of calls to animal poison control, this is kind of a breakdown by percentage. The most common call is my pet got into some over-the-counter medication, Tylenol, ibuprofen, something else, Benadryl, I mean, who knows, any kind of an over-the-counter, and they want to make sure it was not toxic, or in most cases it is toxic. It is never safe to give your pet over-the-counter meds without checking with your veterinarian. And we'll talk about that with prevention. Prescription medications are another common, the next level down. That's both veterinary, well, actually, that's human medications. And we'll talk about the types of medications that pets get into that cause problems. Food, and I separate chocolate out because it's such a common toxicity, but food, chocolate, veterinary medications and products, household products, rodenticide, which is rat bait or mouse bait, plants, insecticides, and garden products. And that just kind of gives you an idea of the frequency of the types of calls. Okay, we'll start off talking a little bit about household products, and I'll start with cleaners and cleaning products. And I want to impress upon you that natural does not necessarily mean safe. There are many natural products out there that are not safe for our pets. These particular ones in this picture, 2 of these actually are safe, but this is not meant to say that these particular products are not safe, but it was the best graphic I could find of natural products. So in this situation, the bottom 2 are fine. I don't know these other 2 products, so I can't attest to those, but Mrs. Myers and Method generally are safe. But you always want to read the labels and see what's in those products. Okay, cleaners. So bleach is not a safe cleaner to use in your home when you have a pet. Now, a lot of us do clean with bleach. We use it in our laundry. Dogs will drink anything. Or if you use it on your floors to disinfect, with pets, you have to rinse it really, really well. And you have to make sure that it's dry, and then even open up the windows for a little bit before you let your pets back in the area. There's something called sodium lauryl sulfate, and that is found in many detergents, especially laundry products. It's kind of that thing that makes the white foam in your wash. That is very toxic to dogs and cats. Ammonia, cleaning ammonia, chlorine, and that's different from bleach. And I think about chlorine also with like pool chemicals. Things that are called glycol ethers, and we'll talk about labels so you can see that. Formaldehyde, and I know that sounds kind of funny, but there are many cleaning products out there that use formaldehyde as part of their formulation. Air fresheners, especially those that contain phthalates, and they're labeled as such, are also toxic. And disinfectants, like a lot of the antibacterial sprays and kitchen cleaners have something called benzalkonium chloride, and those are definitely toxic, more to cats than dogs, but definitely can cause some irritation to the dogs. And oven cleaners. And degreasers as well. And anything that's a degreaser or an oven cleaner, you have to be very careful with. Okay, so we're going to do, this isn't a poll, but I just want you to think about Simple Green. Is that a safe product? Maybe people can type an answer into you, Tracy, and you can kind of see if we have all yeses or nos or.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and if you'd like, and type into the comment section if you believe Simple Green is safe for pets. Yeah, like you said, Dr. Boyer, it's, the natural looking products can really be misleading unless you read the fine print.
Absolutely.
Let's see, we've got okay, no, we're waiting. We're also running about 10 seconds behind what people are seeing.
Okay, no problem.
So, okay, so we have Christine says, yes, Simple Green is safe.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Okay, Steve thinks it is not safe.
Okay.
Anybody else want to weigh in here? Diane says no, she doesn't feel it's safe either.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else want to? Okay, let's see. Marianne says she thinks it's not safe, and Catherine also feels it's not safe. So we've got 1 vote for yes and 4 for not safe.
Well, in fact, it is safe. Simple Green is an extremely safe cleaner to use in your home. There are no reports really of any toxicities for pets. Now, granted, with any cleaner, you should, rinse it when you're done and, make sure it's not sitting in a pile. But even if your pet were to lick it, it is not toxic to pets. Okay. How about Mr. Clean? This is a good one. Everybody likes a lot of us grew up with Mr. Clean, and we go back to our old fashioned cleaners that we used to use sometimes when we were kids. I've used this cleaner in my home actually fairly recently because it's all I had available at the time. So do we think that one is safe?
Let's see. We don't have anybody commenting on that, but Christine said, good to know, we use it here, and that was for the Simple Green. Vivian is saying no, just because it says it's green doesn't mean it is. Correct. Okay, So Christine says no to Mr. Clean. Okay, so we've got 1 vote for no. Anybody else want to weigh in on Mr. Clean? I mean, he's got a happy face, Dr. Boyer. I mean, he looks friendly enough,
And, especially right now with COVID, it kills even though COVID's a virus, Mr. Clean is a great antibacterial cleaner. So a lot of people think, oh, it's antibacterial, we should use it, it's going to kill everything.
Right.
So in fact, it is not safe. Absolutely not safe to use in your home when you have pets. Okay, it has definitely has some product in it that will cause a toxicity. Okay, and that one is that benzyl ammonium chloride is what we had talked about in that list before. Okay, and it has ammonia in it as well. Anytime it says ammonium or ammonia, yeah, you don't want to use that. Okay, here's one a lot of us use, Windex. Is that safe for your pets? What do you think, Traci? Are we there?
Yeah, I was mic'd. I was coughing. Sorry.
Okay, just making
Yeah,
sure. Can't see you.
I was thinking that I use it, but
Mhm.
I also I don't worry about my dogs licking things. You know,
Mhm.
they just don't have that habit. But yeah, I guess I would have to lean towards it not being safe.
And you would be correct. It is
Okay.
not a safe product in terms of pet safe. If
And
your
that's what
pet were-
Vivian thought, Christine thought that, and Catherine thought that as well.
Good. That's excellent. Okay, here's another one, scrubbing bubbles. I grew up with this cleaner. I mean, I still have memories of my mom like spraying the whole bathroom down with this cleaner and wiping it. And for some reason, I still like that smell. But do we think that one is even safe?
I'm going to say no on that one too, because it works too well.
Definitely.
Anything that works too well can't be safe.
Nope, you're right. And in fact, yeah, that one is definitely not safe. Okay. And how about this one? There's a lot of information on the internet about Febreze. So do people think Febreze is safe?
Well, when you get, I mean, I try to keep up on volatile organic compounds, and I have to believe that this falls in line with that as well.
Okay. So who thinks, so you're telling me that you do not think it's safe?
Well, you know, there was that whole big controversy about people spraying it on their sofas and then people saying that their pets were dying. I don't know if that was an old formula and they've changed it, but anything that doesn't come from the earth. I mean, there's so many things that we can use that are natural, that are approved, that are clean. So to go out and buy these commercial items, it just, you know, there's so many other alternatives. But yeah, we're getting, let's see here what we've got. We've got no to Febreze from Christine. Steve says no. Nancy says no. So we've got everybody saying no here so far.
Well, in fact, it is safe.
Really?
Yeah. There are no real reported cases of, let's say, fabric being sprayed with Febreze or the air being sprayed with Febreze that has caused toxicities that are directly linked to the Febreze itself. Yeah, it is. It is a safe product. Yep, it is. And in fact, if you look at the EPA website, you know, they have a lot of these products have you know, MSDS sheets, data safety sheets, and they have to have information. If you go on their website as well, they do specify that they are pet safe. Yeah,
good to know.
Good to know. Doesn't mean you should buy it, but
right.
No. Okay, bounce, dryer, and not just bounce. Let's just talk about dryer sheets in general. You know, they smell great. You throw them in the wash. You know, I don't know about your dogs, but my dogs, if I have one that hits the ground, sometimes, you know, they'll chase after it and put it in their mouth and they'll play with it. And, you know, they like those dryer sheets.
Yeah.
Those are safe.
Again, I lean towards it not being safe. I mean, we use wool balls anyways.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good.
It's just, yeah, it's more of a sustainable feature. But let's see what people say here. Okay, Brenda is saying no. Christine says no to dryer sheets. All right. Anybody else want to weigh in on this before we find out the answer?
No, sorry.
There it is. Okay.
Dryer sheets are definitely not safe for pets. It has to do with the formulation of the detergents and the chemicals that are in those, and they can cause a toxicity, especially if they are eaten. Okay. That doesn't mean you can't use them on your clothing and then your pet would get sick. You know, the amount that's transferred to your clothing is not a problem, but it would be a problem if they were to be ingested.
Okay.
Okay. Other household products that we sometimes see. So rodenticide, which I will discuss separately, snail and slug bait. You know, I'm fairly new back to the New England area. I don't know if people use that here, but certainly on the West Coast, that's very common toxicity. Insecticides, which we can't get away from, permethrin, pyrethrins, things like that are sprayed, fertilizers, and certain kinds of mulch, and in particular, cocoa mulch. It actually has the same issue as chocolate toxicity. So if you're going to put mulch down in your yard, you want to stay away from what's called cocoa mulch. Here in the Northeast, especially, lock deicers and antifreeze can cause toxicities. And antifreeze, They have changed some of the formulations over the years. We see far fewer cases of toxicity with ethylene glycol or antifreeze now, but we still do see it. The snow and ice melt products that are not pet safe, those certainly do cause toxicities, and even sometimes corrosion or corrosive burns from having been on the paws and then being licked as well. Dogs do ingest paint and paint thinners. They do ingest glue. I've seen cases where a dog has eaten a tube of super glue. Oh, it's pretty horrific. Grout sealers, and then things like toilet cleaning tablets are things that people don't always think about.
Yep.
Okay, now we'll talk about rat bait because people wanted to know about it. So rat bait, it's gone through an evolution. When I first started practicing, I would say you would see either cholecalciferol types of rat bait, which affects the calcium levels in the body, and calcium is very critical to cardiac function or heart function. And if you have too much calcium or too little calcium, you die. And then for many, many years, like 12 years, 13 years or so, all we really saw were like Decon and Tomcat, and they were mostly the anticoagulant type of rodenticide. So the rat or the mouse would eat it, and those were the things that looked like the green Decon little cubes. And then what would happen a few days later, they would start to bleed and die. And unfortunately, it causes the same issue in dogs and cats. So if a dog or a cat were to eat the rat bait that is an anticoagulant, you won't know it right away if you didn't catch that they ate it. And then they would, days later, start to have bruising and bleeding problems. It interferes with blood clotting, and then they die if they're not treated. And sometimes they die even with treatment. And so the same holds true, like the question that was asked is, what would happen if a pet ate a poisoned mouse or rat? They can still have the same problem. They will absorb that same issue, that same coagulation issue, if that's the type of thing that they've ingested. So it is very important, if your pet ingests a rodent that you think may have potentially gotten into Decon or into a rodenticide, that we try to get that pet to vomit if we know within 4 hours. And if we don't know, there are other things we can do to help, but it's certainly something I would discuss with your emergency clinic or with animal poison control. Bromethylene now, well, the EPA then started to say consumers cannot buy the anticoagulant type of rodenticide because they generally don't come in those bait stations. Have you seen those commercial bait stations that you see outside of buildings? Those black boxes, right? Those are generally have the anticoagulant type of rodenticide in it, and they're supposed to be so that pets and children can't get into them and eat that. Well, now they've discontinued the sales for the most part to consumer, unless it's in a bait station, of the anticoagulant type of rodenticide. The good thing about anticoagulant rodenticide is you could treat it, and the animals generally didn't die from it as long as you caught it, fairly soon or within a couple of days of them having ingested it. And the treatment was pretty easy. If they hadn't started to bleed at that point, they're going to take vitamin K tablets for a long time and then get their coagulation levels rechecked. The problem is now that what's being sold is called bromethylene, and bromethylene, it's horrible. It's something that actually makes it so that the nerve cells can't produce ATP or energy, and their entire nervous system shuts down, causing seizures and ultimately death. And there are not a lot of antidotes, or there is not an antidote for bromethylene. And so we're selling a more serious rodenticide now. It absolutely will, and it kills quickly. It's not something that takes days to hit. And when a dog comes in with bromethylene poisoning, if they get enough of it, there's not always anything we can do to solve that problem. So it is now much more common and far more dangerous to our pets and our kids. So, rodenticides, it's tough. I mean, people don't like rats. They don't like mice. They don't want them in their homes. But sticky traps are the most humane, safest way to get rid of rodents. And especially if you're moving into a new house or you're living somewhere you're not familiar with, go through that house, because a lot of people years and years ago would have put maybe some rodenticide up in an attic, and you won't know it, and your pet will get into it. So, and then, you know, but I didn't put any rat bait there. Well, no, you didn't, but the person who lived there before you did. So anytime you are new in an environment, it's important that you scour that environment and make sure before bringing pets in that there's none of this there. And one of the things that we know about when a dog or a cat eats rodenticide is they'll either start pooping green. That's and because the green is usually the color of the rodenticide, or if we happen to make them vomit, if we know soon enough and we can get to be able to induce vomiting, what they'll vomit up is green. And it's not just like green, like plant green. It's like a very, very fluorescent green. And it's a very classic look for a veterinarian to look for.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so that hopefully will help. Okay, I'm going to move on to some flea and tick products. And I'm sure most of you have seen the headlines in USA Today with Seresto collars causing 1,970 pet deaths. And I will address that after we talk a little bit about the generic flea and tick products. So, you know, fleas and ticks are part of our world. They carry disease. They cause an incredible amount of pet illness every year. Tick-borne disease have very life-threatening potentials. Fleas do, depending on how bad the infestation is, can actually cause death in cats and dogs. And there are different kinds of products out there available to people for flea and tick prevention. And I know a lot of people don't want to use chemicals on their pet. And my answer to that is you have to weigh the risk of using something with the risk of getting a disease, and which is worse. So if it wasn't a big deal that your dog got a flea, then I might opt not to use flea control. However, fleas carry plague, or rodents carry plague, but fleas cause tapeworm. Fleas cause skin problems. They can also cause anemia. There are other things that in cats especially, they can get an infection that basically destroys their cells. And all of that comes from hunting rodents and fleas and things like that. So it's really important that we do protect our pets that are at risk. There are two places that people get their flea and tick products. One is the over-the-counter tick products and flea products like Harts and Sargents and Adams and pyrethrins and permethrins, and all of those are considered kind of over-the-counter flea and tick products. And I will tell you, in general, those are not safe. I have probably in my career treated over 1,000 pets for flea and tick product toxicity, like the Harts and Sargent products, and even though they may say pet safe. So you might take a Hart's spot on and put it in your house on your dog, or unfortunately, if your cat is exposed to it, if they get those drops, those spot-ons on them, that causes a toxicity. Cats are incredibly sensitive to permethrins, and so I'm very hesitant to recommend any of the over-the-counter flea and tick products. Now, and I'm not saying that because I'm a veterinarian and I want you to buy your products from a veterinarian. The veterinary products are tested differently. They're labeled differently. We know what's in them, and we know the pros and cons. There are oral, certainly like Bravecto, Credelio, oral heartworm and flea and tick products. And those are safe in most healthy pets. A lot of people are scared to use them. I can tell you the number of problems I've seen. I think I've had 2 cases where we had a pet have a more significant issue that I'm aware of over the last maybe 8 years since those types of products have been out. And I see far more dogs with like Lyme's disease or other tick-borne disease that cause bigger problems. Certainly the orals are not safe in any pet with a neurologic problem or have an underlying health condition or seizures. I wouldn't use it in those circumstances. But for the most part, the oral preventions are safe and they work better. Now, Seresto, on the other hand, and especially here in New England, sometimes the oral preventions aren't enough. We moved here from California, and I use Bravecto in my dogs, and they were fine. And I have dogs that are out in the field all the time. We moved here, and it wasn't enough, and we had to add on a Seresto collar. So let's talk about Seresto. Traci, did you see that big USA Today article, and that Seresto isn't safe, and it's caused 2,000 pet deaths or problems?
Yeah, I did, and we talked about it in the dog walking club as well.
Yeah. So Seresto, first off, Seresto is a safe collar. I want to say that they have distributed like billions, on the millions or billions, very high numbers of these collars have been used throughout the world safely with very few incidents of problems. The vast majority of problems with any of those collars are a skin irritation or a local reaction to the collar. If the pet has sensitive skin, you take the collar off, the problem goes away. Now, the USA Today, most of those collars, what I have seen in all of the literature that I've researched since that came out, is those collars, many of them were purchased on Amazon, and many of those were actually counterfeit collars. And so when you purchase Seresto from a veterinary facility or a veterinary pharmacy, like some of the online pharmacies that are VIPs or veterinary pharmacy certified, you aren't guaranteed as to what is in that product. And there are many, many heartworm, flea, tick products that are counterfeit. The package looks exactly the same, but what you're actually getting is not the true product. And we've seen that time and time again. So I feel personally that Seresto is safe. I use it on my own dogs. I wouldn't if I didn't think it was. And I personally would tell you that I would not trust a Seresto collar that was purchased anywhere other than a veterinarian or a VIP certified facility. And that's, like an online pharmacy that's a certified veterinary pharmacy. You go onto Amazon or any of these other places, then it can be a problem. And so they were able to attribute many of those issues with the Seresto collar to counterfeit collars. Okay.
Yeah, that's great information. And that's basically what we were finding as well. You just have to purchase it from your veterinarian, or as you mentioned, a VIP source.
Yeah, or a reliable veterinary. Like, a lot of times, people will use an online pharmacy for price or convenience, and we understand that. But you want to make sure that you're using one that it's called VIP certified. You have to look for that on their website. So, okay. Okay, other items you might not think about. So pennies. If you have, dogs eat pennies. It happens all the time. Pennies, if they are dated after 1982, have high levels of zinc in them and will cause zinc toxicity. Generally, you don't even know that your pet has ingested that, but your pet will be getting sick. You'll go to the vet. They might take an x-ray, and then they'll see the penny there, and then they'll know what that is. We see a lot of toxicities. Pets ingest batteries a lot. And in fact, they, especially like the flat ones, those the watch batteries and things, those are toxic. So, that's another thing. It's not just the foreign body itself, it's the battery that causes the problem. Rogaine, of all things, Rogaine is toxic, and cats love to lick it. Even one drop of Rogaine shampoo for a cat. I know, and that's something that they don't advertise. It is absolutely unsafe. Now, in dogs, they can tolerate it a little better, but it still is toxic. It's extremely toxic to cats, though. Glow sticks, pets do eat glow sticks. Again, those can be toxic. And then somebody earlier had asked about aromatherapy items. So, oops, sorry about that. Aromatherapy, there are two ways that essential oils are generally used. One is diffused in a diffuser, and the other is placed on the skin. And I love aromatherapy. I think it's great to walk into my house and have really great smelling stuff. But if you think about it, the oils are heavier than air, and they tend, once they've come out of a diffuser, to go low to the ground where your pet is. So what they're getting is when they breathe, is they're getting a higher concentration of that essential oil than maybe what you were getting and smelling. So that can cause issues and toxicities. There are many of them that can be toxic to dogs and cats. And so the ones that I have listed on the right, the eucalyptus, the cinnamon and citrus, pennyroyal, peppermint, pine, tea tree, wintergreen, lavender, those all are toxic to pets. And lavender more to cats than dogs, but certainly it can happen. So I caution you not to use essential oils in areas where your pets are going to be, whether it's going to cause respiratory problems or more serious toxicity problems. If they ingest it or if they get it on their skin through contact, it can be problematic. Tea tree oil is very, very toxic to dogs. So a lot of people use Melaleuca products, or they use tea tree oil for themselves. I use it for myself. You have to keep it out of reach of your pet. You don't want to use tea tree oil on your pet. Okay, let's go to poisonous foods, because this is kind of a long list of things. Some of them should be obvious, but some of them may not be. Alcohol, don't let your dog drink your beer. It's not good for them. Alcohol poisoning happens. Apple seeds. So if you're feeding your dog the cores of the apples, I mean, apples are safe. My dog loves apples, Just try not to feed them the seeds. You need a fair number of them to be toxic, but they are toxic. One that a lot of people don't know is avocado. And avocado is kind of one of those funny ones. There are dogs that can eat avocado and have no problem. And there are dogs that one bite will be a serious medical issue. And we don't know with avocado how much is toxic. So it's best to avoid it entirely. Okay, so don't share your chips and guac with your dog. So I would not recommend that. Candies. Certainly we'll talk about chocolate separately, but the biggest problem in candy is xylitol. And xylitol is an artificial sweetener, and I will speak a little bit about that on another slide, but it is found not only in candy and gum, but in toothpaste and mouthwashes. So if you're brushing your dog's teeth, you don't want to use human toothpaste because a lot of them have xylitol in it. And also they have a foaming agent in it that will make your dogs puke. So don't use human toothpaste. And mouthwashes also have that in there. Everybody should know chocolate is toxic to dogs, and we'll talk about the types of chocolate and what that is. Anything with caffeine, coffee, tea, or any energy drinks, toxic. Garlic, and people, as long as it's cooked, it's fine. No, actually, any garlic, raw or cooked, is toxic to dogs. And that actually, it builds up in the system and it causes what's called a Heinz body anemia, and it ruptures the red blood cells, and then your dog becomes severely anemic. So it's really important not to use not only garlic, but onions and chives. Those are all toxic. Broccoli, certain parts of the plant in large amounts, is toxic to dogs. It can cause some problems, as well as tomato stems and leaves. Most people know grapes and raisins. And again, grapes and raisins is one of those funny things. There's no known dose that's toxic. There are dogs that live in vineyards that have been eating grapes for years and they don't have any problems. They have other dogs, like, a 50-pound lab could eat one grape and have significant kidney problems. And so it's really important just to grapes, raisins, prunes, stay away from those. Macadamia nuts cause muscle tremors and seizures. Hops from beer, salt is kind of an interesting thing. People don't realize that dogs and cats can get salt toxicity. Share too many of your salty potato chips or share too many salted foods with your dog, you can actually cause a toxicity. Tobacco products, raw bread dough or yeasty products in particular cause problems in animals. And then raw fish, especially salmon. There is something called salmon poisoning. And I'm sure some people out there probably feed raw to their dog. In fact, I have 2 dogs that do eat a raw diet, even though there is a potential issue with that. Dogs that eat raw meat can get salmonella, listeria, E. coli, and other problems. But salmon in particular is a specific one I would never feed raw. And then we have to watch with fruit pits like peaches. Those have cyanide inside of them. Okay.
So Dr. Boyer, Steve has a question as well that I want to flash up here.
All right. Yep. Go ahead.
Oops. Oh, sorry. Right. Computer's acting a little slow here for some reason. Okay. So there are many so-called natural dog products now produced with garlic. Why? Are they safe?
I won't say that they're safe because I think people think in small amounts it can be safe, but it's very hard to judge how much is in that product. And, but it's also a chronicity of use. I mean, if your dog ate one tiny, tiny, tiny ingestion of garlic powder, probably not a big deal. But over time, if you regularly use it, I don't believe that to be safe. I would not use it.
Okay.
Okay. I do have, before I switch to the next slide, I do want people to know there are, we'll talk about gum and xylitol on another slide, but down here, I think on the right, I don't know if you can see that there are online chocolate toxicity calculators for dogs. And this is something that's pretty interesting. So if you do, and I'll show you some apps, but if your dog does ingest chocolate, before you panic, you can pull up as opposed to Google or Facebook, pull up a chocolate toxicity calculator for dogs. You can put in how much your dog weighs, what type of chocolate it is, how much you think they got, and they can tell you whether or not there's reason for concern. It's always best to check with a veterinarian or toxicologist, but if you don't have that ability, there are definitely some reliable calculators online for chocolate specifically. Okay, So xylitol, and why is it so bad? Xylitol is found in mostly things like sugar-free candies and gum. And not every sugar-free candy or gum will be xylitol. It's specific products. And also in a lot of the nut butters that are natural, especially the processed ones like the PB Fit, the Go Nuts. And it's not just peanut butter, it's any of the nut butters may have xylitol. It's really important to read your labels. What happens with xylitol is it causes a dog to not be able to regulate its blood sugar. It affects the liver, and it affects the liver so profoundly that as little as one stick of Trident can kill a 50-pound dog. Okay. Other artificial sweeteners like aspartame or maltols do not cause that. So xylitol, I'm going to go back a slide. You see that picture of the Trident Vibes there? You'll see sugar-free gums that come in those plastic containers. And what's interesting is that the ones that come in the plastic containers, as opposed to just a regular gum wrapper, those have higher levels of xylitol in them and are more toxic to your pet than the ones that aren't in those hard plastic containers. So, dogs will smell that, dogs smell in parts per billion. They love xylitol. And if you have it in your purse, sugar-free gum in your purse, in your car, in your house, anywhere, and I know my dogs know how to open up drawers and they can open up doors, they will find it and get into it. And it's something that it's hard to cure this. I mean, they die. And I think I've probably treated, I don't know, maybe in recent years, 30 to 40 of these cases, and the vast majority of them don't make it. By the time we've seen them, the pet can't regulate his blood sugar. We can't do anything to bring it up, and they die. So in my household, nothing with xylitol comes in our house. I have 7 dogs. I can't trust it. My dogs are brilliant and they'll get into everything. So we just don't have it in the house. And especially in a purse or something else, I would feel horrible if that happened. So just watch your labels. It's really important. Okay. All right. Let's move on to medications. Medications for come into 2 categories: prescription and then over the counter. By far, the most common toxicity we see are those in the NSAID class, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory: Motrin, ibuprofen, Aleve, and naproxen. Those are, those are all the NSAIDs that are over the counter. Those will cause problems with your dogs. You should never, ever, ever give a single tablet of this to your pet. I just can't stress that enough. It causes problems with kidneys. It can cause problems in the liver. It causes gastrointestinal ulceration. It requires a lot of extensive treatment that can cost thousands of dollars. And I know sometimes people don't, their pet's painful. They're in the middle of the night. They don't want to go to the emergency clinic because it's expensive, but it will be far more expensive and potentially deadly to give your pet those things. So please don't do that. Tylenol. A lot of people go, oh, Tylenol's toxic. Well, yes, it is in certain doses. So I don't recommend that you give your dog Tylenol, but there are veterinarians, and I am one of them, who use like a Tylenol number 3, like a Tylenol with codeine, that I will prescribe for certain pets in appropriate amounts that are non-toxic. It's very tightly controlled for pain relief, because it is superior to some of the other medications we can dispense over, for pets to use at home. So I am in favor of using it, but again, it's something that has to be calculated properly, or there can potentially be toxicity. So don't give your pet Tylenol. It's not a good idea. A lot of our population take antidepressant meds, especially those of the SSRI type, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, Effexor, Cymbalta, Prozac, all of those. They can be toxic and they do have effects on our pets. So if you take those medications, you have to be very careful not to drop them on the floor, because that's how most pets get into medications, or a bottle is left somewhere where they can get it, and they eat everything. So be careful if you take those. As well as the ADD, ADHD medications. Those certainly are problematic. There are generally stimulant medications, and those that are non-stimulants still can cause problems. Other ones are benzodiazepine like Valium or Xanax, or alprazolam is the other name for that, or some of the sleep aids like Ambien or Klonopin. Those can be quite dangerous. Birth control pills, and for any ladies who are using estrogen creams, though we have seen illnesses and toxicities of pets who have been handled by their owners who have gotten estrogen creams on their hands and then handled their pets. So be careful, wash your hands, use gloves when you're putting the estrogen cream on, throw the gloves away in a place your pet can't get into them. Heart medications, thyroid hormone, statins. A lot of people take statins. Those can cause big problems for dogs. And also vitamins. You can overdose a dog very easily on human vitamins because we tend to take pretty high doses. So certain vitamins can be toxic. Okay, veterinary medications. Any medication that a pet gets into that's a veterinary medication can cause an issue if it's an overdose. The biggest thing is that nowadays people want to be able to easily give their dogs medications, so those tablets are now flavored. When I was a young veterinarian, I'm almost kind of ashamed to admit it, but I had a dog that was on Rimadyl, and I had a 500 count bottle of Rimadyl, one of those big, big bottles that we used to dispense out of at my home, on a counter at the very back of a counter where I did not think my dog could get to it. And I came home to 400 tablets out of that 500 having been eaten. Fortunately, I was able to save my dog, but it was a big wake-up call to me as a pet owner and veterinarian that these dogs will get to it if they can. I mean, they will jump on a counter, they will open a drawer or something. So if you are able to not use a flavored tablet, I recommend not using flavored tablets. It's less likely to cause a problem. And granted, you're not going to have 400 tablets in your household, but even 30 tablets can be a problem. And then if you have to do it as a flavored tab, keep it in a locked container so that your dog cannot get into it, or your kids for that matter. Okay. I'm going to brief discussion about plants. Plants can be toxic, and these are the top 10 toxic plants for pets. The one I'd like to call, I mean, there's lilies and azaleas and rhododendrons, but the one that I really want to tell you about is the one on the bottom right. And I know we don't have it here necessarily in New England, but unless somebody has it potted somewhere, it's called a sago palm. And sago palm is highly, highly toxic. And where I used to live, we had sago palm and people would cut them down, but then the dogs would eat the center of the stump and eat the powder that was left after we cut the stump out, and that would cause liver failure and they would die. So highly, highly toxic plant. We do plant out here a lot of tulips and bulbs, and those are toxic if the dogs eat the bulbs or the tulips. Daffodils, devil's ivy, peace lilies, all of those kinds of plants can be toxic. And then blue-green algae in warm and hotter weather, depending, and we're in, having our dogs swimming in ponds and lakes, contact or ingested blue-green algae can certainly cause a problem and cause death. I am going to go back. Sorry, I'm going to go kind of click back to the poisonous medications. The other one that I didn't put on here are marijuana and other, illicit drugs. Marijuana in particular is very common. I probably see marijuana toxicity on a weekly basis. In dogs, it does not take much to cause a toxicity. So a little tiny roach, or what's left at the very end of, you've smoked a joint, or a tiny bit of edible can cause significant problems in dogs. So what I can tell you is, as an emergency vet, I don't care if you ingest marijuana or you smoke it or any of other medications or, drugs. Tell me what it is so I can help your pet. We're not the police and none of us are going to report you. Okay. So if there's a chance that your pet has gotten into something that is like a stimulant or marijuana or any other kind of, illegal drug, please, please, please just confide in us and let us know you think this could be a possibility. We usually recognize marijuana toxicity pretty carefully, but we want to be able to get your pet home safely to you. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about prevention. Okay, first and foremost, I'm a huge advocate of regular veterinary checkups because a lot of things happen in the context of a veterinary checkup. I ask a lot of questions of pet owners who come to see me so that I can figure out the lifestyle of their pet. What are they giving their pet? What kind of food are they using? What kinds of things are they exposed to? And it's an opportunity for a veterinarian to educate somebody and say, hey, are you using this kind of thing in your home? And a lot of times we prevent toxicities that way. And in addition, if your dog has something that we discover that might make a current medication or something else you have in your home toxic or dangerous for them, we want to help you with that. So for example, we talked about flea and tick products. There are certain products I won't use on dogs that I see a neurologic issue in. And so I want to make sure that we're not using those products. And these things change frequently. So it's important to be in regular contact with your veterinarian. Okay. If your pet is under 7 and they're generally healthy, we say once a year is fine for a checkup. If they're over 7 or not perfectly healthy, twice a year or more is when you should be having an exam. And follow your vet's advice for preventative maintenance. If they are telling you, look, it's really important to do a blood work to look at liver function, kidney function, or whatever, or you should use heartworm prevention or flea control because of your particular geographic area, there are risks, or vaccines, it's generally a good idea to follow your veterinary advice. We talked about not purchasing the over-the-counter flea and tick products or from non-veterinary sources. And then there are other things we can do for prevention other than kind of common things. The first is what you're doing right now. Knowledge and education. Become educated about these things. Look, the ASPCA Animal Poison Control website is a wealth of information. And we'll show you some other things you can use. Planning is critical, and to evaluate the risks that your pet and your environment has. So like I said earlier, when you move into a new house, you should be walking the perimeter of that property, looking for, rodenticide traps, looking for places that, chemicals might be. Look in the garage. Did they leave anything up in the rafters? Look in the attic spaces and really go through your place and make sure that you're keeping your pet safe. Do an inventory of your home, both inside and out, and get anything that's potentially toxic out of there or out of reach of any pet. And any medication should be kept in a lockbox. That's the safest place to put them, whether it's an over-the-counter or not. And household chemicals should also be kept out of reach. Even things like Windex shouldn't be. How many of you store, cleaners under your sink in the kitchen? It's accessible to your pet. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about putting together a pet poisoning kit. And that'll be our next slide. So it's this, and I think, Tracy, you said you're going to have these things up. This is going to be something up on the New Hampshire Dog Walking Club page that people can rebroadcast, right?
Absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. So this is a list of things that I consider kind of in a pet, not a first aid kit, but a poisoning emergency kit. And I'll kind of talk about a few of those things. So the first thing is that the hydrogen peroxide. Now, a lot of veterinarians will tell you, do not induce vomiting with hydrogen peroxide. I'm one of them. I give that advice almost every time somebody calls me at an emergency clinic. If somebody needs to induce vomiting in their pet, I would prefer they come in because I have safer alternatives than hydrogen peroxide. I have medications that I can make a dog vomit, and I'm not going to risk a gastric ulcer, and that's the problem with hydrogen peroxide. It is one of those things that can cause GI bleed, and so I say to put the peroxide in your kit only if you live really, really far from an emergency clinic and there is absolutely no way for you to get there. You never want to induce vomiting unless your veterinarian or ASPCA poison control tells you to, because there are many poisons that it would not be safe to induce vomiting for. But you can keep a 3% peroxide as long as it's not expired in a kit for those times only when you cannot, under any circumstances, get to the vet. And that may be like, we're in the middle of a nor'easter and it's not safe for you to drive, or something like that. So I would really only use that in exigent circumstances. Along with that, a turkey baster or an oral dose syringe in order to be able to administer the peroxide in the correct dose to your pet. Dose-wise, that's something that, the animal poison control will give you that information based on the size of your pet. A measuring spoon set is good as well to be able to, see how much peroxide you might need to give, like a tablespoon or not. Liquid hand dishwashing detergent like Dawn dish soap. I love Dawn. Those are good for topical exposures. So if your pet is sprayed by a skunk, you can start with, the Dawn soap, or they get into petroleum or oil or gasoline or some other, something that's causing a skin inflammation or irritation. It's safe to use like a Dawn dish soap. Diphenhydramine, that's Benadryl, okay? And that is something that, depending on your size of your dog, if your dog is probably let's say about over let me think here, about 1 milligram per pound. So if your dog is 25 pounds or larger, you can use the tablets. Otherwise, not the infant diphenhydramine, but the pediatric diphenhydramine liquid, making sure there's no xylitol in it. Then that would be a safe way for you to have some diphenhydramine if we're having an allergic reaction to it. And I'm sorry, that's actually on both sides of the slide. I just realized that. The next one would be rubber gloves so that you don't get things on you if there's a substance that's causing any kind of corrosion or issue. Karo syrup, especially in cases of like xylitol or cases of low blood sugar, that can be rubbed on the gums. Vegetable oils, sometimes the animal poison control might advise you to give the dog something with vegetable oil in it. Pedialyte, saline solution, something to wash out the eyes with, an ophthalmic solution. And then I always say like some kind of like canned chicken or canned dog food, because sometimes a pet will eat something and really what I want them to do is to be fed something to help move it through the system. So canned dog food or canned chicken packed in water or some broth. Vitamin E oil, and then a muzzle in case your pet gets into something and they are just frantic or biting or painful. You want to put a muzzle on so you don't get hurt while you're taking them into the vet or working with them. So these are all things that you can kind of put together and keep in your home that might be helpful in case of a pet poison emergency. But again, don't induce vomiting or give anything to your pet without specific veterinary advice. That being said, if you call any veterinary emergency clinic and say, hey, I think my pet ate X, they will tell you one of two things, or one of three things. One, they'll tell you to call SPCA Poison Control. Sometimes they'll say that. Some clinics will say, how much does your dog weigh? And they'll tell you whether or not you have a reason to be concerned. Or third, if you are concerned, come on in. So you can ask them, look, is this something I can induce vomiting with? And they'll say, well, we don't recommend you do it with peroxide, but you can then make a choice for yourself if you can do that or not. But SPCA Poison Control is really the best option. Okay, couple of apps, and we're kind of into this techie thing. ASPCA, Animal Poison Control, has on the left, you see that little yellow paw print. They have a wonderful app that everybody can download. I think it's free. I'm pretty sure it's free. And they are a wealth of information on animal poisons. So instead of, when you have a question about whether or not something's toxic, this is kind of the Bible that I would go by and use that app. It's very helpful. There are calculators as part of that to say, hey, my pet ate this. This is how much it ate. Do I have a reason to be worried? It's a great app. And then on the right side is an app called Plant Snap. And there's other ones like this. This isn't the only one. I'm horrible when it comes to identifying plants. Botany was just never my thing. I'm not a gardener. That's my husband's thing. I take this app on my phone and I go out in my yard, especially when I've moved to a new place, and I hold it up to each of the plants in my yard. It tells me what that plant is and whether it's toxic. It's amazing. So, you only have to show, have it take the picture of like the leaf or, you'll see it and it'll tell you, hey, this is what this plant is, and to give you all the information you need. So I highly recommend both of these apps. I think it will help you prevent many, many poisons and toxicities. Okay. So what should you do if you suspect your pet has been poisoned? The first thing you should not do, you should not get on Facebook and ask everybody else in the world whether or not you have a reason to be concerned. Okay, that wastes time. The first thing you need to do is either call your local vet clinic, emergency clinic, not even your regular vet. Most regular vets do not have the things they need to deal with toxicities. Many of them do not have the medications they need to induce vomiting. And many of them don't deal with toxicities enough to know whether this is a problem. So everybody should have a local emergency clinic within 40 miles that they can call, at least for advice, or the ASPCA Animal Poison Control or Pet Poison Hotline. And then, or the next thing would be to go to your local veterinary emergency clinic, or if your regular vet can handle it, go there. And then don't waste time. Time counts. So with many toxicities, if it's more than 4 hours since the pet has ingested things, we can't induce vomiting. It's too late and we have to do other things instead. if you know right away your pet ate something, and especially things that are like medications, those liquid gels, the rapidly dissolving medications especially, time is of the essence. I mean, even 10, 15 minutes, it may be too late for us to get it out by making a pet vomit. So really important not to waste time Googling things and looking it on Facebook. Pick up the phone, call the emergency clinic, or go right away. And while you're on there, have somebody in your car with you, let them start an ASPCA poison control case, because that can take 20 to 30 minutes to get that all set. And they will then talk to your veterinarian. Once you get there, you'll have a case number and hand it to the vet. The vet gets on the phone with the toxicologist, and time is of the essence, and you have a treatment plan, and hopefully your pet is then saved. Okay, and I think that is where I end the formal presentation. So I will go back to StreamYard, Tracy, and turn off my screen share. Okay. So
that was really eye-opening. What a lot of great information. Thank you for that. Very, very helpful. I mean, you presented things that I think people, pet owners hadn't necessarily thought of. So that was really helpful information. And we do have quite a few more questions that I want to get to if you still have time.
I do. I have whatever time people want. That's fine.
Okay, great. But before we get to that too, just in case you can't stay longer with us, I want to let you know how you can get in touch with Dr. Boyer if you would like to connect with her or if you would like more information. Do you want to talk a little bit about what Supreme Point Kennels is?
Sure. Supreme Point Kennels is what kind of my non-veterinary, our dog breeding business. We have a very active Facebook page over there. It used to be specifically for wire-haired Pointing Griffons. It's now Tibetan Terriers. I generally monitor that fairly well, and I have Messenger and stuff like that. So you can contact me for general questions, or if you need to be pointed in the right direction somewhere. I will not, though, however, answer questions about specific cases, like if it's your pet who's having a problem, unless it's in the context of a business, where you're my client. So if you want a case consult, then just tag me on Messenger, or our phone number's on that Facebook. You can do that if you'd like a case consultation. But if it's just for general information, not specific to your pet or an illness or injury that they have, then I'm more than happy to respond during that. Oh, this is Lucy.
Oh,
this is our, yep, she's 13 weeks old. She's a good girl. Hi, baby.
What a cutie.
Yeah. Anyway, so more than happy to talk to people, and you can post something on the page, and I'll answer questions on that page. So
okay, wonderful. And then also, in case you were wondering about the Dog Walking Club as well, we do a lot of educational programming like this. We also do a lot of events and unique outings, excuse me, for dog owners. And if you want to learn more about us, you can visit our website at nhdog.club. We have a free Facebook community that you would learn about as well, and you could link over and you could join us if you are interested.
You've got some great.
Before we answer all the great questions, I am very excited to announce that Dr. Boyer has agreed to a monthly Ask the Veterinarian series. So we will be coming to you live every month with a different topic. We will be surveying members and asking for questions, things that are important to you, things that you're worried about, and we will be answering your questions with Dr. Boyer every month. So if you are in the Dog Walking Club community already, you will see this posted to the event calendar. And if you're not, and if you'd like to join us, whether you are in New Hampshire or a neighboring state, or we have international members as well for our online programming and presentation, all are welcome to join who love dogs. We are here to help you as well. All right. So without further ado, let me hop over to the questions here because we have a lot of good ones.
Okay.
And I apologize if we don't get to your question or if I've missed your question, because we do have quite a few questions here. So I'm going to do my best here to go through these. Let's see here. Okay, here's one. Can cat litter be harmful to dogs? Mine likes to eat it.
Great question. It is not toxic, but it can be harmful. So some of the clumping clay litters can form like an impaction in the gut and basically a blockage. So it's more of a mechanical obstruction than anything else. So harmful, yes. Toxic, no. Still might need veterinary care because they don't always pass it very well. And it might even result in needing surgery. So definitely. Good question. Very good question.
And Paul wants to know, is chlorine toxic? If chlorine is toxic, how safe is it to allow dogs to swim in a pool for extended periods?
Not a problem in terms of, I mean, you don't want them drinking the chlorinated water. Like some dogs drink out of the pool all the time. They generally are okay. The pool chemicals are the problem because they're not diluted. So in the pool, there's such a massive dilution of the chlorine. Your chlorine levels, you'll have a couple of tablets in, hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water. That's not so much of an issue. It's more the actual, like the chlorine tablets themselves can cause burns and corrosion because when they're full strength. So not a big problem for swimming in a pool. I will say, however, dogs can get salt toxicity from swimming in salt water for extended periods because they'll ingest the water as they're swimming. And also they can get water toxicity if you have a dog that's constantly getting out and back to, fetching a ball or fetching a stick in the water or a bumper, or they're swimming and you notice that they're just ingesting a lot of water, that's probably not such a great idea. That can cause lots of problems. So, watch your dog, don't let them overdo it, make them take regular breaks. And if you notice they're hacking, coughing, or swallowing a lot of water, yeah, probably not a great idea.
And these are great questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Yeah, great questions.
So Christine's wondering, when we were talking about household products, what about Pine Sol?
Yeah, that's a big no. No,
Okay.
not safe.
Okay.
Definitely. Good question, Christine. Really good.
And Paul's wondering, his dog had a reaction to Bravecto. Would you recommend a combination of Vectra and Seresto?
Seresto, yes. Vectra, yeah, probably not a bad idea, Paul. I would think you could do, you would, if your dog reacted to Bravecto, then you want to stay away from any of the, what's called an isoxalaner, like Credelio, NexGard, Bravecto, and then there's a new one called Simparica Trio. All of those would be not something I would give to your dog. But yeah, Vectra is fine. Seresto, certainly Seresto. And I know you hunt your dogs, so you definitely need good tick control. Yep, good question.
And Brenda's wondering how liable, I don't know if she means how reliable is 1-800.
Are we saying liable or reliable? Yeah, there's a difference in question for sure.
Right, I'm not sure which one she means.
Okay.
I'm assuming reliable.
Okay, well, so as a veterinarian, online pharmacies are a very touchy subject for me. It's hard because when we recommend or prescribe a product, most veterinarians have had interactions with either Chewy or pet meds that are not necessarily positive. Sometimes they will approve prescriptions without our approval. Sometimes they will do things that really are not supportive of your veterinarian. However, I understand the need for these places. People are obviously on budgets. They want to, these places can generally sell the product to you for less than what we even get it for. And that's unfortunate. But what I will say, the difference between pet meds and Chewy and your veterinarian, there's one major difference. If you purchase a medication or vaccines, if your dog is vaccinated, you purchase the medication through your veterinarian and it doesn't work. For example, like heartworm prevention or flea and tick control. If your dog gets heartworm and you're on heartworm prevention that's purchased at your vet, that heartworm prevention company is going to pick up the tab for that treatment. That won't happen when you buy your medications through Chewy and pet meds. There is no relationship between the company and the veterinarian for a guarantee. On the other hand, I don't know specifically pet meds. You have to look for what's called VIPS certified. Let me get you let me see if I can find the VIPS certified. Certified. Years ago, there were lawsuits with pet meds and some of these other companies because some of the product that came from there was not sourced the way it should have been. There was product diversion or product counterfeit products that were sold by some of these pharmacies. My understanding is now that if they are a VIP certified pharmacy, that's no longer an issue, but I just can't guarantee it. So, you have to do your research and go where you're comfortable.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so Amy is wondering about what about natural tick and bug spray? Wondercide has cedar oil and essential oils.
So Wondercide, I'd have to look at the specific essential oils that are in there. I know people use it and I know they love it. I don't think that it is as effective as other flea and tick control, but I'd have to look specifically let's see if I can pull that up real quick and just see what's in there. I know Underside ingredients. Okay, Wonderside, I have to see what's in it. It is, they say that it's kid friendly and baby safe. I'm not sure if they are. Let me see what's in the ingredients. Sorry about that. I'm not as familiar with that. It says it's safe for cats and dogs. That's what they say. I would tell you the peppermint, I wouldn't use the peppermint one because that is not typically pet safe depending on the concentration of the peppermint. And okay, it's made with steam distilled essential oils. Not so sure what that means. So I would not recommend it because of the issues with essential oils. But if you've used it before and your pet hasn't had a problem, they're probably okay.
All right. Thanks for that question, Amy. So there's a couple of questions about CBD products. So Paul's wondering about CBD oil, and Amy is wondering about products made for dogs with CBD that you can buy online. Are they truly safe?
With any CBD product, the source of that product is really important. There's different quality controls. There really isn't quality control of CBD. So they can claim anything they want. CBD in general is safe in moderate amounts, depending, and I would discuss dosages with your veterinarian. A lot of the topicals are fine as long as they don't have carrier molecules in them that are toxic. Like if they're infused into an oil, I would be a little more concerned. I know there are dogs who have relief from CBD, and that's okay, but I always worry about the sourcing of that product. So there are some excellent companies out there that have reliable CBD sourcing. I can't endorse any particular one, but as long as they don't have THC in it, it's safe. If they have any amount of THC in it, they are not safe. It's the THC component that's the problem.
Okay. Vivian had a comment. She said, poison control had me use peroxide to induce because of the quantity and grade of the chocolate.
That's an excellent comment. All chocolate is not created equal. So if you were to think about what the milk chocolate is probably the least problematic. The worst is actually cocoa powder. That's the worst. So cocoa powder and then those really strong dark chocolates that everybody buys, those are the worst. Baker's chocolate as well. So they may have wanted you to induce emesis with peroxide because of the timing of when your dog ate it to when you could get to a clinic and get vomiting induced. And if it was cocoa powder or dark chocolate or cacao or any of those really, and a lot of it, that's an alternative. If you use peroxide to induce vomiting, there is always a risk of gastric ulceration and problems with that. And so then generally the recommendation is to follow up after all is said and done and using something like Pepcid or one of those kind of over-the-counter antacids, to help protect the stomach afterwards for a period of time to make sure we don't have a problem. I have seen gastric ulceration from peroxide. It happens. It's not an entirely safe way to induce vomiting, but it's better than not inducing vomiting. So you have to weigh the kind of like flea and tick products, which is worse, getting bitten by a tick and having a disease versus using that product. It's the same thing. Is it worse to use the peroxide or not? If you had a way to get to the clinic within a few minutes and get in and get seen, probably a good alternative.
All right. Thanks for your comment, Vivian. So Kay was wondering, what did you say the vegetable oil for was in the poison kit?
Sometimes the vegetable oil, you may be told by like SPCA poison control to use that as more like a cathartic to get things to move through, or even potentially topically to break down a compound on the skin.
Okay, wonderful.
Great question.
Christine says, thank you, Lisa. Very informative.
Thank
Steve
you.
says, thank you. Learned a lot.
Thanks, Steve.
Vivian, question. There's a database here in Maine which lists lakes and ponds that have toxic green algae blooms. Is there one in New Hampshire?
I don't know. I'm new here. I don't know. That's a great question, though.
I do think there is. There's one I've posted a couple of years ago. I'd have to look that up. It was an up-to-date by day, I think it was, of the lakes and ponds and other areas in New Hampshire. So there is something. I'd have to look that up, Vivian. But yes, there is a resource. I'll see what I can find.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you, Vivian. Yeah. That's great.
Let's see. We've got Okay, so Brenda says, we adopted a puppy last week from Mary's Dogs and they use lavender. Can you tell me what brand? Yeah, and we actually use lavender too because we used doTERRA and we've actually heard it's safe. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's on your list.
It's on the list, more problematic for cats than dogs and more problematic at high concentrations that are inhaled or directly on the skin. I think that the concentration in Mary's products is probably safe. I don't think that that's an issue, but cats are more sensitive to that than dogs. So I don't think I would not hesitate to use that product that you had given out, that paw salve last week at the dog walk.
Yeah.
That's fine. There's no issue with that. I looked at that really carefully and that looks fine.
Okay.
Yeah, she's got good products.
Alyssa is wondering if your dog had an adverse reaction to Atarax, the veterinarian prescribed for his allergies, would you recommend trying Benadryl, a low dose, as an alternative?
Good question. I guess it would depend on the type of reaction to the Atarax. Atarax is an antihistamine. Frankly, for allergies, antihistamines in dogs are very, very non-productive. It only helps about 30% of dogs with allergies. So you could try the Benadryl. It's safe in I've had very few dogs over the years have a reaction to Benadryl. It would be an anomaly for that. But there are other things that you can do for allergies that are non-histamine related. And so I would probably talk to your vet about if I don't know if this is a skin allergy or a respiratory thing, but there are other products out there that are very safe to use for dogs with allergies, and even maybe potentially consult with a veterinary dermatologist. But I would be a little hesitant if your dog had Atarax. I think in an emergency you could try Benadryl, but not for a treatment of chronic allergies. I wouldn't do that.
Okay. And Steve is making a comment. He says, Alavet is not VIP certified.
Yeah, well, good to know, Steve. I have gotten some things from Alivet, but very few. So, they do have some product that's probably okay, but if it's a prescription medication, I probably would not opt to do a prescription or flea or tick from them.
And one last question here from Tina. Are any herbal products helpful with anxiety? What would you recommend?
Oh, I could do a whole talk on separation anxiety and ways to treat it. I do have a few, and it depends on the severity of the anxiety. Bach flower essence, like Rescue Remedy, is very safe in pets for anxiety, but if your pet is truly high anxiety, it may not be enough. Adaptil makes a pheromone collar or diffuser. It's kind of like one of those Glade plugins. That's a pheromone that calms stress, and they also make a spray. Those are very, very safe products to use with your pets, and they work really well. If it's a separation anxiety, there's actually something called Calmer Canine, which is a pulsed electromagnetic frequency device that your dog wears on a harness and you use it for 6 weeks, so many hours a day, and that calms anxiety as well. And it's something that's quite safe and effective for anxiety. And then thunder shirts work not just for thunderstorms, but for generalized anxiety too. So I tend to stick with like the Rescue Remedy. There are some other things you can use, but those are some things off the top of my head.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, so much for your questions. And thank you, Dr. Boyer, for your amazing expertise, your presentation, the advice, so helpful. I feel confident that the information we're providing everyone this month for pet poison prevention is going to save some lives. And that's what our goal is. So thank you very much for that.
And thanks for all you do, Tracy, and getting the information out there and getting the community of dog people together. And we really enjoyed going out on the event last week, and we're going to try really hard to make the walk this weekend too. So it was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, there's an additional incentive for joining our outings. You might get a chance to meet Dr. Boyer and network with her on the trail.
Hope it won't scare people away,
But again, if you want to learn more about her and connect with her, I have put up her Facebook page, which is Supreme Point Kennels. And again, this was a production of the New Hampshire Dog Walking Club. We welcome you to join us. Thank you so much, everybody. I apologize if we couldn't get to your questions, if they come in after the live broadcast, but I will monitor the channels. And if I see something, I'll tag Dr. Boyer and we will try to get you that answer. All right, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks again, Dr. Boyer. Everybody have a great evening.
Bye. Have a great night.